Baroda, the land of the Gaekwads. It is near the Baroda that the village of Nandesari, with a population of around 7,000, is located. Nandesari is a dot on the industrial corridor stretching from Vapi to Ahmedabad, the so-called Golden Corridor. Factories producing chemicals, pharmaceuticals, dyes, textiles line the industrial corridor.
Villagers first reported pollution in the Mahi River in 1968. Villagers in the area complained to the local authorities about the death of fish and cattle, besides the contamination of water, tanks and wells. Groundwater pollution also became a major problem, and most villages use this groundwater for their day-to-day needs. To take care of these complaints, the government of Gujarat built a 56-kilometer-long effluent channel to carry the industrial effluent from the area to be dumped in the Gulf of Khambat. The industrial units were asked to treat the effluents before dumping them into the channel. Our interactions with the local people show that most of the industrial units were treating the effluents only when there was an information of a supposedly surprise check. Otherwise, there was indiscriminate dumping of the industrial waste into the canal. What the government failed to envisage was that the canal ran all along villages that were inhabited, had the propensity to contaminate groundwater, and possibly of accidents taking place because of innocent villagers not knowing how dangerous those effluents were. Studies have shown a high concentration of nickel, lead and zinc in the effluents, as well as unacceptably high concentration of chlorides, sulfates, nitrates and metals in the groundwater near the channel. As this groundwater was used for irrigation, the fruits and vegetables produced in this area showed a high metal content. Even today, the villagers complain of reddish-yellow well water that kills crop on contact. The problem of pollution is from two sources: authorized industries and those industries which are active without licenses. The industries in Nandesari Industrial Estate have got together and formed an association. This association has set up an effluent treatment plant for all the industries operating in the area. The effluents from various industrial units are transported by trucks to the treatment plant. Based on the amount of effluents, the various chemical factories are charged for the services of the treatment plant. After treatment, the plant sends the treated waste to the Gulf of Khambat by means of a canal.
There are certain main issues confronting this project as of now. Firstly, the canal overflows sometimes and the effluent flows into adjoining fields, contaminating the crop. Sometimes farmers themselves use the treated effluent from the canal for irrigation of their fields without knowing the risks of doing so. Secondly, the canal sometimes overflows into a river which crosses below the canal about 2 kilometers away from the effluent treatment plant. The river is used for irrigating fields over a long distance. Thirdly, the canal is not completely covered. There have been numerous cases of children playing near it and cattle grazing having fallen into the effluent canal, causing irreversible harm. Again, there are no warning signs posted along the canal to ensure that the villagers are aware of how dangerous the contents of the canal are. Many unaware farmers think of it as a source of water and use it to irrigate their crops. When the canal chokes or overflows, humans are used to unchoke without any safety equipment whatsoever. This puts their human lives in enormous danger due to exposure to hazardous chemicals. The effluents seep into the ground and mix with the groundwater resources, thus contaminating them. Most of the surrounding villages rely on the underground water for their daily water needs. Lastly but not least, solid wastes are dumped in a landfill near the effluent treatment plant. The landfill is lined with concrete so that the solid wastes do not seep into the groundwater and affect it. The disadvantages of this is that land is a limited resource, especially so in a densely populated area. Already 2 landfills have been used up. The third landfill is currently operational and is on the verge of filling up.
The chemical industries which occupy this stretch include small-scale units to large MNCs. The workers working in these units are ill-equipped to deal with the hazardous effects of the chemicals they are working with. Some of the occupational health hazards Facing the employees are lung diseases including silicosis and asbestosis, byssinosis, dermatitis, noise-induced hearing loss, injuries at work, chromium poisoning, to name a few. There are the following issues related to occupational health among the workers: non-reliable data, no government program or scheme or policy to monitor this, no monitoring of workplace for pollutants, poor implementation of policies that exist, more than one agency for enforcing a single law, no laws for social security and worker insurance, poor unionization and illiteracy, and no legal provisions for large workforce.
So what are the solutions for these problems? Some of the specific issues we had identified are: number 1, poor infrastructure design for waste disposal. Number 2, lack of awareness among the workers. Number 3, lack of a proper long-term solid waste disposal method. The solutions that we came up are as follows. Number 1, greater vigilance by the Gujarat Pollution Control Board of industries and industrial estates along the Golden Corridor. Heavy penalties, including suspension of licenses, can be used for controlling unethical behavior. Number 2, a police-based model of community activism can be used to educate the villagers on the ill effects of using effluents for irrigating the fields. Number 3, workers in factories need to be educated on the ill effects of the chemicals they are dealing with. The police should exert pressure on manufacturers to provide workers with better safety tools. Affected workers should be given quick compensation. Number 4, market-based approaches can be used to reinforce ethical practices from manufacturers. The Gujarat Pollution Control Board can provide a seal of approval for products from ethical manufacturers. The market can be alerted to the meaning and implication of such a seal. The market may be used to reinforce ethical behavior from manufacturers in this way. Number 5, compensation procedures must be institutionalized and standardized so that affected workers can get compensation quickly.
Our trip to the Nandesari industrial estate near Baroda has taught us about the chilling side effects of industrial production, namely the pollution of natural resources. We are thankful to Professor Mathur and the team from Baroda for alerting us to these issues, and we hope to spread awareness about them in the future. Thank you.